Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the ROS Media channel. Today, we are going to be going through our webinar, not our webinar preview, but we're going to be going through our weekly webinar Q&A from Saturday, 23rd of May. We've collated all your questions together, and we've got some really interesting questions today to go through, Ian. There's a number of different categories. We've got about 5 or 6 different categories here, and probably around 20 or so common questions. There were some duplicates. So as normal, we move the duplicates out. We just issue the questions in singular form, and hopefully we'll cover everything that needs to be covered. And then what we'll do is we're also going to do a preview of this coming week's webinar on the 30th, which will be on a separate video. But for today, let's dig into the questions from Saturday, 23rd of May. Good to have you back with us, Ian. And the initial questions are into 5 different categories covering all sorts of stuff from jurisdictional and legal foundations through to this $2 million threshold that we spoke about on the webinar as well. Lots to dig into.
Well, let's do it then. I think these sessions are very valuable and helps build up a knowledge base for the membership. So
sure.
Yeah, very happy to get into it.
Okay, well, question number one is under the presumption of agency. And it says, under black letter law, agency requires voluntary agreement, capacity, and consent. It cannot be imposed by force or mere presumption. On what exact legal basis is it asserted that a living being is automatically considered the default agent for the birth certificate construct or corporate fiction?
Well, it's a great question, and herein lies one of the biggest traps that mankind's been snared into. Unfortunately, your mum and your dad enrolled you into and registered the placenta, and the placenta's got a direct DNA linkage to the baby. And most, if not, I would say probably everybody, when they get to the age of majority, then formalizes the agency by using the birth certificate construct in some way, getting a bank account, getting a driving license, passport, answering to the name of the birth certificate construct. So it's what's known as an adhesion contract. It's an implied contract that is then confirmed by substance use of the birth certificate construct. So you've got this DNA linkage, you've got your mum and dad unwittingly registering the placenta. They don't know what the implications of that is. The decedent estate is created. It's already got a DNA linkage to the baby. The baby then grows up, of course, wants to get onto the Monopoly Board of Commerce to do stuff, get in that game, even though they don't know it is a game. They just want to get on with it, and maybe they've got qualifications from the school, university, in the name of the birth certificate construct. Maybe they've got, they want to get a moped or a motorbike. They've got a provisional driving license. They've got a full driving license. They've got a bank account. They've got whatever it is, and then they hold themselves out as the birth certificate construct. So, unfortunately, the trap is quite difficult to avoid. The only way of avoiding it is to not register the placenta, and then you'll never be able to have you won't be the agent for the birth certificate construct, and you won't be able to play the game of Monopoly and issue the negotiable instruments, which really is, that's where your tax redirections come from, because if you can't issue the negotiable instruments onto the Monopoly Board, you can't do tax redirection, signature credit recoupment. So what you can do is you can rescind the contract, the agency contract, if you isolate things, take them in isolation, you can rescind the contract on individual things, but you can't rescind the contract across the board, because you'd have to go into a rescission on each individual thing, like you could rescind the driving license, but then you'll have a problem with a lot of people think you can travel around without a driving license. Well, give it a go, and you'd be arrested every time you
see what happens. Yeah.
into your car. So a lot of these things are very impractical to do, but you could in theory do it. You could rescind the driving license, you could rescind the passport, you could rescind voting, you could rescind the census, you could rescind various things that you don't want to be involved in. It's not going to be easy to do it, and I could even argue that by doing it, you are potentially threatening the birth certificate construct, which you need for, if signature credit recoupment is something which is attractive and that's what you really want to be doing. You don't really want to be challenging the agency. You want to operate as in the office, or occupy the office of the general executor. You want to be doing that. But I don't really see the need to challenge the agency individually. To me, it doesn't really achieve very much. Most people that are wanting to do that have got problems with debt. They've got problems with taxes. They've got problems with something which they just don't have the cash flows to finance. But if you've got signature credit recoupment coming in, you shouldn't need to worry about that. To me, that is the element of the monopoly game changer protocol that we offer that changes the whole nature of the game. Most people who are having problems are linked to finances or debts or taxes in some way. So solve that. Don't really need to worry about the agency being across all of the things that you actually probably want to use, like a passport, like driving. I know driving is a commercial activity, and some people think you don't need a license and all these kind of things, but practically you do, because unless you want to be stopped every time you go out on the road, and you will be targeted if you start saying you don't need a license and you take your number plates off your car and all of these things, which many people have done. And then they're targeted by the police. And if you want to endure that every time you go out, then okay, fine. But it's not something I would want to do. I just want to get out there and go to wherever I want to go, and just live peacefully and not have to keep getting into altercations with the police.
Yeah,
and they'll take you to the police station, and you're probably locked up for 2 or 3 days. And the only way of getting out is to remain completely silent, and not give them any confirmation of you holding yourself out to the birth certificate. But do you really want to be doing that? Some people have done that, and they've done it repeatedly, and they've been released from jail. What kind of a lifestyle is that? It's like
not a very practical one.
It's not going to be very convenient. That's for sure, to do that. So for me, you take the rough with the smooth. But to me, the smooth is the redirection of the taxes, and that, as the Rothschilds said many years ago, he who controls the money pretty much controls everything. So if you control your own signature credit recoupment and your tax redirection, then you kind of control your own game of monopoly. And why worry about these other things? To me, they're sideshows to me.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, next question, Ian, is utilizing the signature credit of the living soul and correcting the public tax ledger in this manner entirely compliant and aligned when analyzed through biblical laws?
Well, that's again a very good question. I've just completed this morning actually a treatise on the whole redirection of signature credit as redirected taxes. And I've gone into it. I've put everything that I've written about in other papers. I've put it all in one, and I've even brought case precedent in, which I think we'll do an interview on the treatise, because it brings everything together from A through Z. It justifies every single element of it. Is it compliant with biblical law? Well, many would say that the problem with the current system is interest. It's usury. Many would say that is the problem, usury. It's the funding of interest on the signature credit energy which you put on the board. I'm sympathetic to it, actually, because the interest is the cause of the evil. It is, that's the cause of inflation. It's the cause of, foreclosures and, debt repossessions and things of this type. If there wasn't any interest, then you wouldn't, there wouldn't be any foreclosures, because there wouldn't be anything to service.
No.
No. So does it violate the Bible and the sort of parables on debt? I don't think it violates it. I think it solves it, actually, because what you're actually doing, you see, the original issue discount, when you sign for the creation of a negotiable instrument, it goes on the board at zero. It's got this high future value, and the discount between the high future value and the current or the creation value of zero is actually interest. It is actually the interest. And what you're really doing is you're recouping the tax on the interest. So you could argue that it's a redemption. It's a redemption of the interest. What you're actually doing is you are solving the problem, which was the same problem that I think you find in the parables of usury. You're not taking part in it. You're actually reversing it, and you are recouping the signature credit, which is the tax, which the origins of it is the interest, the difference between the future value of a negotiable instrument and the creation value. So you're actually redeeming it, and you're not taking part in the interest. So I could argue, feel quite confident to argue that you're actually solving the problem. You're not violating the problem.
No, that makes sense. Okay. Next question, Ian, is now that a member has achieved envoy status, is it necessary to take immediate radical steps to separate from the system, such as changing names or legal status, or can they comfortably wait until the first wave of recoupment comes in?
Well, I think there's a theme in many of our Q&A sessions of members thinking that somehow, you've got to separate from the birth certificate construct. The solution is very simple. The living soul is the agent for and occupies the office of general executor. So you can just put underneath the name, so write the name, the birth certificate name out, and underneath put general executor for, or put in underneath agent for, and then you're being completely truthful. You're coming clean. You're saying, look, I'm the agent for this birth certificate. It'd be like saying the name of the company and then underneath it saying shareholder or saying director. You're being completely transparent, and you're making it known that you are not the birth certificate construct. That's where the problem is. It's not the birth certificate construct itself. It's holding out as the birth certificate construct. So if you make it clear underneath you write the birth certificate name and just put occupant of office of general executor, or just put general executor, or just put agent for underneath, then you're being completely truthful. You're now not holding out as the birth certificate construct. You're making it known that you are the agent for it, and you want to be the agent for it because you want to use it. It's a banker. Why would you want to get rid of the banker? without the banker, you can't issue the negotiable instruments.
No.
So if you want to do the spend and recoupment, you can't do it if you get rid of the banker. Not that it's easy to do that, but you really don't want to get rid of it. I mean, they've given you a gift, which is under the Bills of Exchange Act 1882, which is the banking construct. Why would you want to get rid of it? Just control it.
Yeah.
You see, it comes back to trust. Don't own it, control it. So you can control the banker, and you can make it known that you're not the banker, but you can control it and use it. That to me is the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, understood. Okay, next question is to do with nationalities and identifiers. If a member holds multiple nationalities and different social security numbers from living in various countries, does it matter which identifier connects to the protocol? Or are these numbers bypassed entirely as they represent tracking frameworks for debtors?
Well, there's one debtor entry in the ledgers, and that is the original birth certificate that's been registered. What happens after that is, things like marriages, things like name changes, moving from one country to another. It's just like sub accounts of the main account. The main account is the birth certificate construct. It was originally registered, and then there is this worldwide system of social insurance. There's actually a centralized database of all the social insurance, all the members of it. I did a webinar on it a few years ago. So it doesn't really matter. It's all about the original birth certificate construct, and in their system, of course, they link it all up anyway. So it doesn't really matter. We've had questions before about people who said, "Oh, they've come from this country into that country."
Yeah.
Can they do recoupment of signature credit as a tax redirection? And the answer is yeah, because they know everything. Their system wires everything up. It joins everything up anyway. So
okay. All right, let's move into the next category then, which is to do with the trust architecture itself. And then someone's been asking a question about revisionary interest. Don't know whether this is to do with, maybe they have a property that they're letting out or something of that nature. I'm not sure. But the first question is, the decedent estate trust is, and again, here's the gap between knowledge and what we talk about. The decedent estate trust is a generational construct that accumulates massive revisionary trust interest over time. Is the historical entity completely collapsed into our international grantor trust during onboarding? And are those assets fully eligible for recoupment?
Well, yeah, let's break that down. I mean, I've seen a lot of people out there who believe that you can sort of access the birth certificate construct as if it's sort of an account of some kind, and you can go into the United States Treasury and try and get them to access the account. The problem is it doesn't belong to the living man or woman. The account belongs to the birth certificate construct, and the birth certificate construct is registered to the state. So what they've done is that they've registered this banker to their own system. They allow you to use it in the same way as they allow you to use your property or your car or your business. It's the same thing. You get equitable use of the birth certificate construct as a banker. But everything that the banker creates is on the board. It's on the monopoly board, and it belongs to them. Because remember, they've mortgaged everything on the monopoly board. So the usufruct system has taken out a mortgage on everything on the board. Well, everything on the board is a negative, and it's all mortgaged to the original creditors. So, and that includes the value of the birth certificate as a security. It all belongs to the board. It all belongs to those that created the game. And the living man woman can't go and retrieve it unless you set up a grantor trust, a foreign grantor trust, and then identify individual instruments that have been created, like mortgages, loans, credit cards, bank payments. But then you have to identify them by the CUSIP number, the securities reference number, and then you can redirect the taxes. But remember, you're redirecting the taxes on these securities, not the securities themselves. So this is where people are getting confused. You cannot recoup the securities. They do not belong to the living man or woman. The securities are on the board, registered to those that control the board. All you can do is recoup the tax for the board has been using, the monopoly board's been using the securities, and the taxes that they are currently paying for the use of the securities, which is human energy, can come back through the grantor trust, but you can't recoup the securities because the securities, like the properties, like everything else on the monopoly board, is registered to the state because it's been mortgaged. You can't access it. You can only access the tax redirection, which arguably is why when you look into where people have made mistakes, they filed at the United States Treasury and they've sent in their birth certificate, and they've put a filing in there, and they're trying to get the Treasury to redirect, to give them back the value of the birth certificate. It just doesn't work because it doesn't belong to the living man or woman. There's no title. There's no legal title to it. The legal title belongs to those that run the board, and it's been mortgaged. So it's all about tax. The whole thing is about tax redirection. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And that's what we want people to really understand here. It's the tax redirection side. It's not recouping the securities. It's all about the tax. The next question, Ian, is to do with revisionary interest. And it just says, how is revisionary interest structured and handled within the updated private trust architecture? And is a single individual lawfully permitted to operate multiple separate grantor trusts? So there's two questions there, really. I'm not sure whether they're asking this because they want to put a property into trust that they're letting out. I'm not quite sure, but that was the question.
Well, reversionary interest is really, it comes back to allodial title, fee simple title. That it's all connected to that. Having a reversionary interest in a property, well, it's a bit of an illusion, really, because you don't really have any legal title. The reversionary interest, you only have equitable title unless you can get the allodial title, which may be possible. Reversionary interest is just really all about the equitable title, and you can move that into the asset fortress protocol. Again, you can control the use of the property, but whether you can actually get the allodial title depends on how it was formed and how it was registered initially. It may be possible in some situations, but it's more than likely not possible because most of the land and property was included in the mortgage that was taken out in 1933. So they only left certain bits of land off, which were difficult for them to seize because they're probably church land or protected land or something like that. It's all about use. And what you want is your trust to be able to hold the equitable title so that you as the beneficiary of the trust can use it without having to pay levies, fines, duties and taxes on the use of it, which you can do with the foreign grantor trust, because the foreign grantor trust is a nation in its own right. It doesn't form part of any one existing nation. It's kind of a nation in its own right. So again, it's about use. It's about control. Reversionary interest. I mean, on the monopoly board, people talk about reversionary interest. To me, it's a nonsense because even if you've got a reversionary interest in property, the birth certificate construct might have it, and it's going to have to pay tax on it. So it's much better to move the equitable title into an asset fortress protocol, a foreign grantors trust, not pay taxes, get the use of it. And of course, the living soul is not actually ever stepping into the artificial world, because they're just operating as a beneficiary to everything that's held in that's the separation. The foreign grantor trust gives you the separation to use what's in the trust, but not actually to be liable for it. And this is another thing that some people don't realize. Beneficiaries aren't liable for the trust.
No.
Which is why you want to be a beneficiary. You don't want to be a trustee, really. You don't really want to be a trustee or the grantor. You want to be the beneficiary. And of course you are with a foreign grantors trust, because the beneficiary is always the living man or woman. It's never going to be the birth certificate construct.
Makes sense. Okay. Let's move on to the next question then, which is to do with historical postures for members who have previously executed administrative notices, statute updates, or standing under old frameworks. Are those records still legally active and valid, or have they been made defunct by the new protocols?
Well, I think what people are probably talking about, or the question is talking about, is what was called status and standing correction, probably.
Yeah.
Which was a UCC filing. That doesn't change. The research that I did into it, it looks very, very attractive, and a lot of people actually adopt it. But when push comes to shove, and I think there's a guy called Novinder Tidball, I think his name is, who's filed UCC 1 over I think his son or something like that. I did look into it in great detail about 6 months ago when it first came out, and a lot of people got very excited by it.
There was a whole big thesaurus moment there, wasn't there?
Yeah. It's a bit of nonsense, really. I mean, it sounds very good, and he's very eloquent in how he issues out all of his various communications and notices and claims that the whole system's been collapsed because of his filing. It doesn't. See, the problem is it just doesn't work. It works on the Monopoly board with loans and financing agreements, things of that type, UCC 1, but it doesn't really work. It doesn't give you you can't go in a courtroom, for example, and say, I'm not the birth certificate construct, here's the birth certificate construct, but I, the living man, woman, have got a lien over it, so I'm the lead creditor. It doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work comes back to agency, because you can say all that, but you're still the agent for birth certificate construct. Yeah. Whether you've got a lien over it or not, it's still the agent. It always comes back to the agency trap, which is where it doesn't work. It does work in isolation, but it doesn't work because of agency. So it's kind of does work on one level, but it's not going to get you out of a court case. It's not going to get you out of being fined. It's not going to get you out of paying taxes, or the birth certificate construct paying taxes, because of the agency still there. And that's why I talk so much about agency, because that is the trap that kind of engulfs everything else. It is the masterpiece that they put in place to control the slaves, and all these other moves that people make, like setting up limited companies. I've looked at that, set up a company, take out a copyright, set a company up in the same name as the birth certificate construct and trademark it, and all of these things. Yeah, they all got merit, but does it take away the agency? No. So therefore it doesn't really have any substance. They sound good intellectually, they're quite interesting. Do they work? You can't go in a courtroom and say, here's the company with the same name as the birth certificate construct. So if you want to find the birth certificate construct, actually the company's got superior, it's got a superior position because of its trademark and its copyright. So find the company, don't find me, because I'm not the company and I'm not the birth certificate construct, because the judge is going to probably say to himself, we've got another one here, doesn't understand it because of the agency.
Yeah.
What's he saying about the agency? Oh, nothing. So that company is a load of nonsense. That trademark is a load of nonsense. And again, it sounds really good. A lot of people have bought courses. A lot of people have, sat and listened to very convincing presentations. I think it's a guy called Hornsley Wood, who does a company thing, setting up companies. You've got other people who do UCC1 redemption. There's a book, like a telephone book thick, of UCC redemption. I looked at it all, and I was persuaded by it for a while, until I realised that the agency was the ultimate trap, and that's where I realised that it wasn't gonna help people. So we withdrew it. Does it still have effect? Yeah. But does it work in the way that people want it to work? No. What works is discharging debt through signature credit tax redirection. That's what works.
Yeah. Just playing the game at a much higher level.
Yeah.
Much higher level.
Yeah.
Okay. So next question. Let's move on, because we're now into the section to do with the threshold and the auditing of accounts. So capping yearly claims. If an age 18 lifetime signature credit recoupment calculation naturally exceeds the 2 million threshold and risks initiating the IRS manual review, is it possible to strategically cap our annual claim just below 2 million to stay within automated processing streams?
Well, that's what I'm advocating, is that we don't try and exceed the 2 million level. And I actually spent about an hour this morning looking at what would happen if there was a freeze because there was a recoupment over 2 million. It goes into a manual review, and the case for letting the recoupment go through is quite strong, because the grantor trust is legitimately the holder in due course, is entitled to the redirection of the taxes. But you're going to have to go into the grantor trust is going to have to go into basically it's like a court case. There is a unit that sits above the United States Treasury that review whether tax redirection should be permitted to go through this system. It's not actually the IRS that's going to block it. It's a unit above the IRS. And actually the case for winning, the case for it is very, very strong. But it's going to perhaps delay it 6 months or a year. And you're going to be the trust is going to be bogged down like court cases. You're going to have to submit all sorts of paperwork and evidences, and it could get very protracted and long-winded. And given that we've got thousands of people doing this, I just don't want to go there. No. I don't want to spend my time fighting against manual reviews, even though you might win them. Every one of them is going to be pulled out of the pile and put into the review. That means you're going to have to go into long, protracted reviews on every one of them. And arguably, why does anybody need more than 2 million a year? I don't get it.
Yeah,
it's like if you won 50 million on the lottery or 100, is it that much different? No, you won the lottery. You've changed your whole life. You've got 2 million a year for the rest of your days that you're still playing the game of Monopoly. For many people, that's 40, 50 years. 2 million a year, is that not enough? 100 million if you've got 50 years to go, is that not enough? I say it's enough.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they'll update that limit as they go forward, because the value of it will be eroded. So I'm sure they'll update that. I actually believe that they put that in there because they kind of know that that's a reasonable amount for people to use.
Yeah.
And if they put it at 10 million, then they would be encouraging the wrong behavior. I actually believe it's there for a reason. That limit is not just plucked out of the air. I think it's there to enable the one that the one in the millions, which is us, because we figured it out, to operate at $2 million a year without difficulty. But if you want to go above that, and in fact, I could be persuaded if somebody had a really good project to finance and it was like really good, they were trying to do something really, really good and they needed more than 2 million. I could be persuaded to take one case on and see what happens.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do that for a load of them. And no way. No. I've got enough to do as it is. So I don't want to go into battle. And I don't want to cause any scrutiny on the filing license, on the tax preparer's filing license, whilst this review's going on. Suddenly everything else grinds to a halt because there's one in review. I just don't want to go there. So not by choice anyway. So.
I mean, you've said in the past that the average is around 3 to 4 million per year. So even if you just took that as an example, if somebody had a $4 million recoupment and they decided that they wanted to, hedge their bets and push that through, and it went into a manual review, if that took a year to resolve, you could have still achieved the same result by just filing for 2 million for this tax year, getting it quicker, and then filing again for the following year. So it doesn't make any sense really to me.
I mean, that's the way to do it is split it up, do 2 million in the first year, do the rest in the next year, the next year, the next year. And as we said internally, yesterday, I think it was, who can really spend, I think it's $4,000 a day or something like that. It's a ridiculous amount.
£4,000 a day. Yeah.
£4,000 a day. Who can spend
£2,200 a day?
Who can do that, consistently? I mean, you can probably do it for a year or two whilst you want to, clear all your decks, get rid of all your debts and get rid of, all the encumbrances and buy everything you want to buy. But then after that, what do you do? I mean, how many meals out can you have? How many holidays can you have? How many things can you buy that you're going to just put in your cupboard and not use? I mean, it's gets to a point where it becomes a bit ridiculous, doesn't it? So
yeah, agreed. Okay, well, next question then, Ian, is with reference to the threshold again. Are we strictly limited to a maximum recovery of $2 million per calendar year now? And what specific mechanism handles a single large liability, such as a mortgage or asset purchase that exceeds this 2 million threshold?
Well, if people have got more than 2 million on a mortgage, which some people have, and some people have got very, very large mortgages, again, you split it up. You put in a 1099 OID for 2 million, and then you wait for the next year and do the rest in the next year. Or if you've got husband and wife and they're both on the mortgage, then you can split it up that way. They can both file as grantors or through separate grantor trusts, and the two trusts can file and put the same instrument on, because that would work as well if it's like a joint mortgage. I don't think there's that many scenarios where you couldn't recoup a mortgage in its entirety, or the taxes can, the tax redirection on the mortgage. But you might not be able to do it all in one go. But again, unless you're trying to redeem the mortgage, and if you're trying to do that, then there would be a case for actually filing in Southern District of New York. And again, in my treatise that I've written this morning, I'm actually quoting case precedent where the Southern District of New York, which is the main court that focuses on securities, the Indentured Trustee Act and securities and basically all the banking stuff is done in the Southern District of New York. And there are case precedent in there where the foreign grantor trust is recognized as the holder in due course. Well, that is the crux of it, right? A mortgage will collapse and be redeemed or discharged. It's not redeemed, it's discharged by proving that the grantor trust is the holder in due course of the credit. And therefore the banks, the originating bank, the investment banks have no standing as creditors anymore. They are mere nominees. They are just debtors, and it can be proved, and the mortgage could be discharged through that 1099 OID filing by a foreign grantor trust, and take the servicing bank and the investment bank into the Southern District of New York with all the evidence that the mortgage is being discharged. And the case precedents are there. They're in my treatise. I put them all in there. So the banks aren't going to win that because they've already lost it. And in fact, one of the main indentured trustees is Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank Trust Company of America. And they've already lost on that. It's in my treatise. And that should put shivers through the mortgage market, actually.
Indeed. Okay, so next question, Ian, is if a member successfully redirects a substantial sum, so let's say it was the 2 million, for example, into their private asset trust, will this size of transfer trigger a manual banking investigation, creating an additional 6 to 9 months delay, for example?
Well, it might do if you didn't have the right bank account structure set up, but we'll be providing access to private banking facilities that are absolutely 100% on board with what we're doing, because they can see that it's tax redirection, they can see it's lawful, and private banks don't worry about multiple millions. That's everyday stuff for them. It's nothing unusual for them. But if you if you said to us, hey, once the signature credit recoupments come into the tax filing grants or trust, send it to my local bank account in the country you're in, you're going to have a problem there, because they're going to probably freeze the account, mount investigation, want to know all about it, and probably report it to the tax office in the local area. Oh, this massive income's come in, and it's going to cause a load of problems. So you need to avoid that, which is why we will offer access to private banks that 100% know what's going on, and they won't be spooked by large amounts coming in. That's what they do. They deal with larger amounts. That's what their private banks do all the time. So,
and again, I'm assuming that will be a bank account that is the bank account of the Asset Fortress itself. So you as the beneficiary, it's not your bank account. You're just benefiting from it. So no taxes, no liability there either.
Well, it's interesting because I looked at, I was expecting someone was going to ask a question about the tax filing grant or trust sends the recoupment to the Asset Fortress, and the Asset Fortress receives it. And is that an income for the Asset Fortress? Well, it's not an income, number one, because there is no income. And number two, it's a foreign grantor's trust. It doesn't have to report it anyway. Even if it was an income, it doesn't have to report it. So it's okay on both fronts. And only if it was a US grantor would there be a problem, and then we would redirect the signature credit, the tax redirection, into a ministry, into a 508c1a ministry. It doesn't have to report because it would be a donation. And you see the tax filing grantor trust is making a donation to a ministry, a 508c1a ministry, and the donation isn't a taxable a tax reportable event anyway. So there's always a solution.
Okay. All right. Final question under this heading, Ian, is what's the possibility of the IRS requesting a formal audit after a redirection has been successfully issued and received? And can they retroactively attempt to demand the return of those private treasury funds?
Well, that would be the case, and there would be a high risk of that if we were to file through the SSN as the tax filing entity, or if there was a domestic trust that had filed, or a regular LLC or a company that had filed 1099, OID. But the foreign grantor trust is unique. It separates. It's a perfect vehicle for separation of the living soul from the trust itself, with foreign grantors trust, which sits on the monopoly board, and becomes the holder in due course. It's all about holder in due course. It really is. That is described in IRS publication 1212 and various other UCC references, Uniform Commercial Code references. Once the trust has got the status of the holder in due course, it is lawfully entitled to the tax redirection, which is why it can command the IRS under the Revenue Procedures 2002-2026 to move funds onto the taxpayer, which is the investment bank's 945 tax module, because it's entitled to them. So it's not going to be clawed back because it has a lawful entitlement to the tax redirection, because it is the holder in due course. It is the creditor, or it represents the creditor. That's the better way of saying it. It's the nominee for the creditor being the living man, woman, the nominee being the foreign grantor trust, that is now taken away the bank's presumption that they were the creditor. Now creditor holder in due course. They're not. The event that caused that shift was the filing of the 1099 OID, and now the grantor trust is the holder in due course, the nominee for the originating signature provider, which is the living man, woman. It's never going to be clawed back because it's 100% lawful all the way through. It's all in my treatise.
Yeah. If you want to read that, it's on the Ecclesia Law website. It was posted there, I think, this morning. So a real good read. And we are going to be doing an interview breaking all of that down as well. We're going to get really technical on that one. So if you like technical, that's coming up shortly, guys. Okay. Next category. Let's move into category number 4, which is scope of eligibility and lifetime credit recovery. Okay. So when mapping out historical financial footprints back to age 18, how mathematically precise must our past expenditure data and estimated income records needs to be to pass validation?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's an estimate, really. I mean, if you go conservative. So things like what I would do is I'd look at, if I've got 2 million budget, I need to fill up my bucket of 2 million. What's the number one biggest signature credit event that I've ever created? And that will probably be a mortgage if you've had a mortgage. Single signature credit creation, probably a mortgage. It's unlikely to be a bank account where you've made bank payments, because unlikely that you've made more bank payments in 1 year than the face value of a mortgage. It may have been the case, but for most people it's going to be a mortgage. So choose mortgages first and add them up, and then if you don't come up to 2 million with mortgages, then move to bank payments, loans and credit cards, and then say, okay, so in what period from the age of 18 to now have I issued signature credit through bank accounts, through bank payments, and which account was that? What bank name was it? And roughly how much did I issue? And it doesn't have to be precise, but don't go over the top. Just don't go crazy on claiming that you issued millions in bank payments when of course you didn't, because that's going to flag. So if you're always underneath the value, then it's safe. But you don't have to be that accurate. You just have to make sure you don't go over the top. Just don't exaggerate it. And I think that it's quite plausible that when you sit down and do the exercise, it's quite plausible that you come up with somewhere near 2 million fairly quickly. It's not going to take that long, I don't think. If you sit and think about it for a few minutes and just write a few things down, I don't think it would take that long to get there. But if you have to go and do an audit on your bank accounts from when you were 18 onwards, that could take forever, because quite frankly, you probably haven't got the records anymore. I know I haven't. And I could remember, I could estimate what my bank payments were when I was 19, 20, but I'd be guessing pretty much. But I can certainly say what they've been in more recent years, roughly. And I could probably get to 2 million quite quickly just by adding up mortgages and 1 or 2 bank accounts for bank payments. I wouldn't need to, for me personally, I wouldn't need to go very far back to get to 2 million. Other people may need to, but a lot of the members have had multiple mortgages, so they're the best targets, really. You know, if someone's had 3-4 mortgages, you could be looking at 2 million just on mortgages.
Start with those,
Start with those.
Okay. So next question here is: can we recoup the entire history of monthly payments made to credit card providers over the lifetime of the accounts? And does this eligibility extend to old accounts that have been completely closed for years?
Well, you can recoup the highest balance. What's the taxes paid on, relative to the highest balance on a credit card. In theory, you can recoup the payments that were funding the credit card interest by bank payments. But again, it's do you need to go into it in that level of detail? I mean, if there was a credit card with $10,000-$15,000 balance on it at some point, add that into the pot, add in mortgages, bank payments. As I said just now, and in theory, you are recouping the taxes that are being funded on all of that, the abandoned taxes on all of those instruments, but you don't have to tie the two things together. You don't have to sort of audit them and tie them together. And I don't think you need to, really, because again, the objective is to try and get somewhere near 2 million, if you can, and just pick out the big ticket items that get you close to it. And don't worry about all these incidental things. No. I think it's it doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you bother scraping around trying to find bank payments that on a credit card that were probably quite low amounts, unless the credit card balance was enormous? Go for the credit card balance itself, the biggest balance. Go for the mortgages. Go for the bank payments that you made on other things. But to try and sort of narrow it down to the payments made on a credit card, unless it was an enormous credit card, it could be quite small amounts, I think. So
yeah, agreed. Yeah. Okay, next question is: what's the administrative process if a member has already completely paid off their mortgage to a high street lender? Are those historical credit signatures still open for retrospective recovery?
Well, they're bank payments, and so the face value of the mortgage, that's up for grabs. The tax redirection on that equal to the face value of the mortgage, and the bank payments that were issued to, and I use the word issued deliberately, issued bank payments, because they're like deposits that paid in inverted commas, funded the mortgage. You've got both. So if you've had a mortgage for 25 years, and you were diligently funding it every single month, and then you've got the face value of the mortgage, and then you've got the bank payments that funded it, for the whole of its lifetime. All of that is abandoned taxes waiting to be redirected and recouped. So yeah, it's you can do both. It doesn't matter whether it's been redeemed or not. The signature credit tax is still sitting there abandoned.
Okay, let's move into the next question then. If a person has historically filed for personal bankruptcy, or if the commercial banks they previously utilized have completely ceased to exist, can they still recover that credit energy?
Well, it's a very good question. And I did a webinar on bankruptcy not long ago, because it's bankruptcy of the corporate the construct, the birth certificate construct. The energy that was supplied onto the monopoly board through the signature, that is what is it's the tax on that energy that's being redirected and recouped. Whether the entity itself, and I could for those people that are in bankruptcy, it's not going to stop you from being a grantor on a trust, on a foreign grantor's trust, and recouping the signature credit and redirecting the taxes into the grantor trust. Even if the birth certificate construct was bankrupt, it could still do that. And it could, even if payments have been made to creditors that led up to bankruptcy, or in the bankruptcy itself, all of those payments are up for grabs as tax redirections into the foreign grantor's trust, which would, because it's a foreign grantor's trust, and it doesn't form part of the estate of the bankrupt estate, because the bankrupt estate is the birth certificate construct. It's separate from that. So for those people who want to think creatively, there's a huge market here for people that are actually in bankruptcy right now to form a foreign grantor's trust, recoup signature credit that's coming into that, coming back from the redirection through the United States Treasury into the foreign grantor's trust, operate the bank account of the foreign grantor's trust, which is separate from the bankruptcy of the birth certificate construct, and effectively the bankruptcy of the birth certificate construct wouldn't make any difference to the lifestyle of the living man woman, because the living man woman is never going to be a bankrupt. They're always going to be a creditor. They're always the supplier of the credit energy. You can't be bankrupt if you're living soul. It's impossible.
No, I know we ran a Q&A on that, didn't we? We did an interview on that as well. So, okay, couple more questions under this section, Ian. First one is, and we've already kind of had this question, but this is just from a different member in a different way by the looks of things. Is lifetime signature credit recovery functional for an international member who has spent the vast majority of their life living and working outside the UK or US, such as Nigeria, but has recently relocated?
It doesn't really matter. Again, it's the original birth certificate was registered. It's still registered. Every signature credit event is still being tracked, whether it occurred in Nigeria or whether it occurred in the United Kingdom or United States. It doesn't make any difference.
No.
It's still being recorded. The IRS's system, the IRFM system is recording it. No matter where it's entering the monopoly board or entering onto the monopoly board, it's being recorded and moving around. You see, it's one big trust. So this is probably the best way to look at it. It's like, if you look at the monopoly board itself, imagine that's a trust. And if you move from one area of the board to another area of the board, it's still the same monopoly board. Yeah. And the trust is still it's still the same trust. You might be staying in one hotel one night on the monopoly board and another hotel the next night. It's still on the monopoly board, right?
One day you're on Park Lane, the next day you're on Fenchurch Road, as they say. Okay, right, we've got a question to do with gold. So a gold asset strategy. If a member has accumulated physical gold, is it more strategically advantageous to liquidate the asset to then spend and recoup, or to leverage the gold by taking out a loan against it?
Well, I mean, if it was me, I would take a loan out against the gold and then recoup the face value of the loan, leaving the gold fully in the market. Because for me, gold isn't going to go anywhere apart from up relative to everything else. So I wouldn't want to get out of gold. I'd want to take a facility against it, and most of the gold bullion, the high net worth gold bullion dealers, they provide financing against the gold, 60-70% of the value of the gold. I would do that. And of course the finance provider, you're not making any difference to them whether you are recouping the signature credit taxes and redirecting taxes. They won't even know. So you could do that, discharge the gold loan, take another one out, and then repeat the process, and then buy more gold. I mean, it's a very elegant plan, actually. If you started off with $1 million worth of gold and took a $600,000 loan against it, and then the next year you discharge the 600 million and then buy 600 million more gold, and then take out a loan on 1.6 million, maybe that's $1 million now, and then you could just multiply it up like that year by year. It's actually quite an elegant plan. I like it.
I did like that question when I saw it. Okay, let's move on to the final category then. Category 5, which is to do with the platform, transcripts, future systems. So what is the exact status of the original OID filings and the credit data that appeared on the tax transcript last year? Now that access has been fully reinstated by the IRS, is that historical information still considered valid? And will it be mapped back onto the members' platform? So I guess we're talking about the 600 million here.
Well, the answer is I don't actually know right now whether those wages and tax transcripts that we had last year are going to be able to be, whether we're going to be able to file the 1041 to recoup the signature credit that equals the wages and tax transcripts. Because right now we are looking to try and reinstate the original grantor trust with a new trustee. If the IRS takes the new trustee, then I would be pretty confident we could resurrect that. But it's not known at the moment. We're in limbo at the moment. We've put in, we filed with the Ogden IRS to replace the original trustee with a new one, and we'll see what happens. If they grant that, it's very possible that we would better quickly file the 1041 and resurrect that wages and tax transcript. But the problem is we just don't know what they're doing in the background because of the identity fraud filings that Amy Sanger and her pirates did. We just don't know what's going on in the background with those wages and tax transcripts. They haven't gone because we can replace them with new ones. No. So nobody's lost anything. It's at worst, it's a delay, very frustrating delay, but they haven't gone away. That tax redirection can still happen, but just in a future tax year, as opposed to the 2025 wages and tax transcripts that came in, which were filed in early 2025. So we haven't lost them, but we just don't know whether we can retrieve at the moment until we get an answer on successor trustee being applicable and being accepted. And very soon, I am expecting some kind of a status report on the federal investigation into the pirates, because that is now been going on for 5 months. I think it is January. I think the reports were issued by the tax preparer in January, so we're coming up 5 months, and I'm expecting because we've got a ability to ask the IRS what's going on with that investigation, I am expecting a response soon on that, and then we'll probably know more. If they have isolated the fraud identity reports to the pirates and they've left all the other grantor trusts alone, and they've released any investigation over them, then it's quite likely that we could resurrect it all, which is, is what would be the best to accelerate the receipt of the recoupment, the first recoupments. That would be the ideal outcome, but I can't say with any certainty at the moment until we get more information.
Got it. Okay. Next question. Is the traditional wages and tax transcript drawdown process identical to the mechanics of currency creation, or is the new tax module launched on the platform a completely separate operational protocol?
Signature credit recoupment hasn't changed since the beginning of 2025. It's the same process. The only difference is that instead of having a portfolio of trustees, one trustee for each of the individual grants or trusts, and having 36 trustees, is that there is a single trustee that is like a master and sub-account structure, where a single trustee can separate and operate a whole portfolio of trusts under an attorney-in-fact mandate. Again, it's in my treatise how that works. That's the only difference. The actual filing for 1099 OID 1041 is the same. There's no difference. There is more the scrutiny and focus on the 945 payer modules now than there was in 2025, to make sure that 1099 OIDs, the accumulated value of them, don't exceed the taxes that the investment banks have funded on their 945 tax modules. But the process itself is the same now as it was in 2025. No different.
Okay. So next question. With the institutional push towards central bank digital currency, will sovereign individuals eventually be forced onto a digital compliance grid? And can our private treasuries be utilized to directly shield and top up our daily operating accounts?
Again, in the treatise, I talk about the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, and what they're doing is they're moving into stable coins, so that the whole system carries on. And although the dollar is still the world reserve currency, they're kind of integrating the stable coins to come in as additional mechanisms, which will enable them for more digital control. So rather than CBDCs, which were pushed, there was a lot of pushback on CBDC around the world. So what they've done is they've sort of disguised the CBDC into stable coins, and they're calling it USDC. Yeah, it's the same. I mean, they end up with the same insight and the same control into what's going on, but instead of calling it CBDC, they're calling it stable coins, and they're the Genius Act. I mean, can you come up with a better? I mean, surely there's a better name than that. They could have called it the Slavery Act or something, but not the Genius Act. But that's what they're calling it. And the Clarity Act, well, they're giving us clarity on the slavery system, that's for sure. But not for us, because the signature credit tax redirections is exactly the same under that system as it is under the current system, because it's the way it works. And this is another reason why people should read that treatise, because if you read it from A through Z a couple of times, you'd soon realize that the wiring, the actual framework, isn't changing at all. It's just the components that are called something else, but the actual framework is exactly the same. Can you use your foreign grantors trust to avoid digital ID? Yeah, because the digital ID is on the birth certificate construct and the bank accounts connected to it. The foreign grantors trust has its own bank account. and it's a foreign grantor's trust bank account, which is completely separate from the birth certificate construct. It's a foreign grantor's trust. It doesn't sit in the country that you're in. So it's better than an offshore company on many levels, or nearly every level for me. A, it's non-reporting, and B, it's completely private because it's controlled by private indenture, and that there's a lot of law precedent there that private trusts, the banks can't penetrate. They can't even ask who the beneficiaries are. They can only know who the grantor or the trustee is. They cannot know who the beneficiary is, and the digital control can never be over the beneficiary because no one's going to know who it is. So it's to me, it's the best solution for the the avoidance of digital ID and the constraints of it. I just don't see a way that they're going to be able to control the spending of a foreign grantor's trust and link it to the birth certificate construct, because it's two separate entities on the monopoly board.
Yeah. Okay. So next question, and this is the final question. When it comes to replenishing the bank tax pool, so the tax modules, it was previously stated that there is between 50 and 100 billion in investment bank taxes currently eligible for potential recoupment. Given that new signature credit is generated globally every day, does the ongoing daily income of these commercial banks continuously replenish this pool of eligible taxes?
Yeah, because the banks they're funding their modules, and most of it is the 1120 module all the time, and most of it is it's payroll taxes. Most of it is payroll taxes, and the 945 ledger is non-payroll taxes, because the 945 ledger is to do with original issue discount and other financial instruments. And so they fund the payroll taxes and they underfund the 945s, because the 945 module, because very few people are redirecting the taxes from the 945 ledger. But do they have to fund taxes every year? Yeah. I mean, there's the banks, the last thing the banks are going to do is stop paying taxes, because they'll lose their license as a bank if they do that. That's part of the deal. They've got to carry on the game. They've got to operate with huge operating profits, which are negatives because it's all debt. But if they stop paying the treasury, they will lose their banking license. So old Jamie Dimon isn't going to be doing that anytime soon. He's going to carry on, because it's like a Ponzi scheme. They fund the taxes, they can hypothecate, it goes round and round in a circle. So the whole thing is like a big game that the top bankers are never going to challenge the taxes or try and minimize their tax payments, because if they start doing stuff like that, they'll probably lose their banking license.
Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to an end of the questions, Ian. So let's talk about next steps. If you have stumbled across this video for the first time and you're thinking, what on earth are these questions to do with? I have no idea what the content was. Then you may have come to realize that we run webinars every week. We have a flagship webinar that we run every Saturday. I was on with Ian last Saturday. We'll be running another one this coming Saturday on the 30th. So, and I think if you think about just last Saturday's webinar alone and the subsequent questions that we've had today that we've answered for you, many of you probably would never have even contemplated that you'd even be asking these types of questions. But now that you're learning about this, doesn't it just prove that the old system relies entirely on your lack of structural awareness just to keep harvesting your credit energy? And what we're doing here is we're opening this doorway to the solutions to that. But it does require action on your part. So if you're wondering what to do next, then I would certainly recommend that you continue to educate yourself. Get on the next webinar, register for this coming Saturday's webinar. Ian is going to go even deeper into the 98 grantor trusts. So if you want to register, you can go to roswebinars.is. You can register there. If you are already a part of the Republic of Old Souls and you're in our private members association, you can also register directly from your platform too. If you are a member here and you are already going through signature credit recoupment, then the next thing that I would say to you is go to your members area, log in, make sure that everything is up to date on your end, not on our end. We get constant questions from people about what's going on with my process. What are you doing about my process? But in many cases, what we're finding is that we're still waiting for you to do something on your end. So I would say, and I say it every week, and I'll say it again, we can only move at the speed of the most prepared members. So go to your platform, make sure everything's up to date, check your comms hub and make sure there's no outstanding messages from the team there that need your attention and that need action from you. And that will help move things along. And we are making sure that we have a cap of 500,000 members just to maintain the integrity of everything that we're doing here. So if you want to be a part of this and you want to help us grow the Republic of Old Souls Nation and help us expand into the Freedom Plan, which is what we're all working towards at the end of the day, then you can become an advocate. You can become what's called an advocate. You can become an advocate originator here at the Republic of Old Souls, and you will have a link within your members area that is unique to you that will allow you to share this with other people. So if you want to take some positive action, share it with 3 people today, is what I would say. Set yourself a goal. Share your link with 3 people today within your immediate circle. Who's not going to benefit from signature credit recoupment back to the age of 18? I don't know anybody that wouldn't want to do that. So stop acting as the debtor on their board. Step into this office of the General Executor. And hopefully we will see you on the webinar on Saturday. That's what I would like to see. So they're my final thoughts, Ian. Any from you before we let everybody go?
Well, we're just launching the avatar, and we're going to put it out to the advocates first, and then get some feedback. And then if everything is good, we may tweak it a bit here and there based on the feedback. But within days, we'll be launching it through the entire membership, and I think people are going to like it because you can ask it questions about signature credit, tax redirection. You can ask it about trust, the foreign grantors trust. You can ask it about Asset Fortress, Envoy. You can ask it about all of those things, and it's got a pretty decent response. So I think it's going to be well used, and I think also it's going to help with spreading the word because people can send the link to it, and then you can earn the reward points. So if you want to send it to 4 or 5 people that you know and say, hey, take a look at this, I'm really interested in this, or I'm doing this, you can earn yourself the avatar rewards, which is $100 for everyone who you refer who uses it for more than 10 minutes. So you could quite easily accumulate $500 in one day if you had 5 people that spent 10 minutes looking at it. So and that you can offset against the enrollment donation of any of the protocols that we have available. So I think it's going to be popular. I'm sure that it will evolve as we go forward, and there will be other avatars to do with the process, the actual process that you're in. You can ask it your own process, what's going on. You can also ask about if you're an advocate, you'll better ask about what's going on with the advocate position, what's going on advocacy in general, what's going on with your advocate account. That's coming soon as well. So we're definitely using technology to help us to grow and spread the word.
No, that's great to hear. We've had some comments on socials about that already during the course of today's Q&A. So we've got, thank you for all the information. See you on Saturday. Have a great week. And then also I'll be sharing this avatar with as many people as possible. What an incredible opportunity. So grateful to have you with us. And we will see you on the next episode of the Republic of Old Souls ROS Media channel. Have a great day. Bye for now.